Out, everybody. I'm Ed Mylett. Today is going to be interesting. It's probably one of my more difficult introductions because this man's accomplished so many different things. When we talk about maxing out, he's maxed out multiple areas of his life. So let me tell you his name first because it's going to sound familiar to you. The man to my right here is Marshall Silver. And Marshall,
great to see you, Ed.
Great to see you.
My pleasure.
And thank you for being here.
Been too long coming, man.
I know. Everyone's been trying to get us together. We finally connect here today. And in researching you, that's why these intros are so difficult. He is the world's most well-known hypnotist. He's played on all the main stages in Vegas, been on Letterman 5-6 times, all the late night shows, and that's how I knew you, is from back in the day watching you do that. And then he's parlayed that into an incredible career in all kinds of other venues. So I'd call you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a personal development expert. He calls himself a millionaire maker, which he's done many, many times over and over again. I think you're a thought leader. And but he's really a person that can teach you how to influence other people, and because he's so influential. And so you're talking about somebody who's had, an infomercial that's over $100 million. He's had $200 million in sales himself, decided to retire, and then started to have a family. And so my favorite part about you, though, of that entire intro, is the most impressive part is the way that you speak about Erica, your wife.
My goddess.
Your goddess.
Yes.
Don't you love that, ladies, right? We all wish our men referred to us and thought of us that way. And then Sterling, Maximus, and Prosperity.
Yeah, Sterling Silver. Got to make a point here. Sterling Silver. Right. Sterling Marshall Silver, like his father, yet a little more refined. Maximus Marshall Silver, and Prosperity Erica Silver.
It's pretty awesome.
It's fun. They're great.
And that changed your life because that sort of leads us to today to some extent, in that really the birth of Prosperity. Tell them about just your life, a little bit about your background, what you had achieved, and then what the catalyst was to sort of re-engage on this maximum level you've been on now.
I was born on a farm in Michigan. We had no running water, we had no electricity, we had no phone. I have 10 siblings, and my mom pretty much raised all the kids on her own because of just fathers coming and going. And so very early on, I realized if I was going to get anything, I had to get it myself. The second home we lived in was a converted chicken coop. We were homeless for a period of about 2-3 weeks in the middle of a Michigan winter, and they knew we were going to die. And so they converted a chicken coop, and we lived there for 4 years. And it was a great place for me at 7 years old. The place had running water, had electricity, and no adverse side effects. But it was great. Used to do magic shows in the barns and build them into haunted houses.
How old are you when you're doing magic shows?
I started in magic when I was 7. And then I discovered at 10 that people would pay me to do what I loved. And I thought, this is it. Right. And so I was a professional magician all my young years.
Really?
Yeah.
And how do you think, I'm curious, because you've talked about this with your own kids too, we're just going to go in and out of different things here. Because obviously today we both agree we just want to really serve the audience, and you're just such a wealth of knowledge in all these other areas. But I know a child's upbringing influences them. You've talked a little bit like kind of ages 0 through 8, how their brains are still...
all of our programming is already done.
That's already. So how did that affect you? And then what's been the contrast that you've tried to do with your kids?
My father was he was a hardcore alcoholic and a mean drunk. And when he and my mother divorced, I would call my dad on the phone to tell him I loved him, and he'd say the first words out of his mouth would be, "You little SOB, don't call me." And the last words out of his mouth were, "You little MFer, don't ever call me again." And he didn't use acronyms. Wow. And my mother, though, was the polar opposite. My mother was, "Marshall, when you grow up, you're going to be rich, you're going to be famous, and then you're going to take care of me." So she was the person that would drive me to my magic shows. She would sit outside in the driveway when I went in to do somebody's birthday party. And the reason she wouldn't come in, I was 12 years old, the reason she wouldn't come in is she said, "No, you're a professional. Professionals' mothers don't come into the show."
Wow. Stuff with your kids comes up in your content a lot. It's interesting to watch before you had your children. And how much it was, obviously, hypnotism was a central part of it. How did you get into hypnotism? In other words, were you hypnotized yourself as sort of some of the trauma from your childhood, or how did that all materialize?
Growing up, we were so poor, I would wear my sister's clothes to school. I mean, that's just the way it was.
Seriously.
And this thong is killing me right now, actually. Some things you get used to. The thing about it is a hypnotist came to my high school, and I got up on stage, and he flapped his arms up and down, and he said, when he said the words "Sonny Boy," I would stand up from my seat in the audience, I'd walk back to the stage, I'd fall on my own butt, I'd roll my pant legs up above my knees, I'd climb on his lap, I'd put my thumb in my own mouth, and I'd say, "Sing it again, Daddy." And I remember going back to my seat in the audience, all my peers are there, all the other students are there, and I'm thinking to myself, there is no way in the world I'm going to do this, not going to do it. And he says the words "Sonny Boy," and I felt like a magnet was pulling me back to the stage. Walk back to the stage, I'm on my butt, rolling up my pant legs, going, I don't need to do this, I'm doing it anyway.
Wow.
And I get on his lap, I got my thumb in my mouth, "Sing it again, Daddy." And I left, and I went home that night, and I was thinking, was I actually hypnotized? Or was I just doing what he told me to do?
Really?
And I thought, what if he had told you to be confident, Marshall? What if he had told you to get off drugs? Because at the time I was smoked pot.
Wow.
And I said, what if what if he had told you to go out and be a multimillionaire? And you did it just because he told you to do it, and because he told you you could, you knew that you would. Oh my God. And it profoundly impacted me. At 17 years old, I had done some research, and I hypnotized my first subject. It was a woman that I was in love with, except as a young man, I wasn't smart enough to stay out of the friend zone. So I was her best friend, and I counseled her whenever she broke up with her other boyfriends. And I hypnotized her. She was my very first subject. And after I hypnotized her, she wouldn't leave me alone. I mean, just was all over me, would not leave me alone. So I kind of got hooked on hypnosis there. But I hypnotized 2 more people with great success. And then the next 3 people I hypnotized didn't respond well.
Okay.
And so I didn't really understand it. I kind of thought I'd lost my mojo.
Yeah.
And then years later, I was attempting to figure out what I wanted for my life, not just for my job. I wanted to know what my life was going to be. And so from 21 till 23, I went through 8 jobs and 8 apartments in 2 years. It got to the point where my own family wouldn't help me move. Wow. And I had been doing some temporary DJ work with this other guy. We were getting paid $250 for 4 hours worth of work each. Okay. And one day, he's not showing up anymore. And I gave him a call. I said, dude, what are you doing? He said, I became a stage hypnotist. I said, really? How'd that happen? He told me I went and studied with this guy. I said, how's it working out? He said, well, I don't work 4 hours for $250. I work 1 hour for $2,500. And I went, that's for me. Yeah. And so I found the guy. I went to study with him, a 5-day course, 10 hours a day. Okay. And when I went to study with him, I sat with him, and in the first half of the day, this is the best in the world. Okay. In the first half of the day, I said, I know this stuff already. If this is what it is, I was on the right path. Wow. And so I was up in LA. I left LA. I drove back down to San Diego where I lived. The next morning, cold called on this nightclub chain called Carlos Murphy's. Yes. And I cold called at Carlos Murphy's and went in the next morning and talked to their entertainment director. The moment I walked through the door, he said, oh my God, I've been looking all over for you. You're hypnotist Marshall Silver. Well, he hadn't been looking for me because I didn't have a hypnotic show yet. Okay. But he booked the show 4 nights a week. The show that I didn't have, he booked it 4 nights a week. Come on. I got back in my car, drove back up to LA to walk into the second half of the second day. The teacher's this guy named Gil Boyne, and I always called him Yoda because he looked just like Yoda. Okay. And he's cursing me out as I'm walking through the door. You have no discipline, you don't follow through, you come in late, you left early. What do you have to say for yourself? And I said, Gil, I was so inspired yesterday. I left your class in the afternoon. I cold called this group in the morning. I just booked the show that I don't even have formed yet 4 nights a week. And without missing a beat, he says, and he's the exact reason people succeed in this business. And it was great. And as they say, I've never looked back. It's just been an amazing ride.
What, so you had this sort of flip switch in you where you took massive action, though.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
That's been there. What is hypnotism? So we say this word, I think we're all listening. What happens when I'm being hypnotized, and why is that relevant to personal development, peak performance, thinking, etc.?
It's not enough to learn a skill set. You've got to become someone new. So kind of like in the area of wealth, I tell people, it starts with you acknowledging that you are a multimillionaire, even if the money has not yet been deposited in your bank account. I don't know what your upbringing was. I don't know, how your youth was. We were dirt poor. So in the time that I was searching for Kraft macaroni and cheese money in the couch and the kid that lived in the house with no running water, during those times, I was a multimillionaire whose money had not yet been deposited in my bank account. And I think what hypnosis does so powerfully, it takes us from the place of, gosh, I sure hope so, to a place of certainty. I think that fear of failing is so grand in people that they just don't do anything. They have a book inside of them. They're afraid to write the book because what if I write the book and nobody wants to read it? Then I'm a failure. As long as I don't write the book, I could have written a book that was a bestseller. Yes. And it's kind of like anything in life that most people just don't take big actions. You and Tony Robbins are great friends, and I share the stage with him on a lot of occasions. Yeah. And, Tony works a lot. That guy works a lot. And I got to tell you, I don't like working that much. Right. I mean, I love my work. I don't work at all. I love what I do. Yes. Except I really love this kind of time, at our beach house with my kids and my wife. I really like that. And so years ago, I mentioned previously, I went into retirement. My babies were born at home in the bathtub via hypnosis. No drugs, no doctors, no pain. And when I caught Sterling in my hands in the bathtub and I cut his umbilical cord and made his perfect little belly button, I thought the moment I saw it in his eyes, I said, I'm retiring. I'm done. made a couple $100 million. I've lived this amazing life. I'm done. Right. And then Maximus was born, and I caught him in the tub and made his belly button. And I'm looking into his eyes going, yeah, boys, just the two of us and mommy. We're going to travel all over the world. It's going to be great. And then my daughter Prosperity was born, and I caught her in my hands. In fact, we live streamed Prosperity's birth because we wanted women to see that they have an option. My wife was wearing a bikini top, and we were in the tub, so shooting above the tub. I was topless, though. You gotta have ratings. You need ratings. So I caught Prosperity in my hands, and it was instantaneous. The moment I looked at my daughter, I don't know whether it was my upbringing. My mother raised her sons to be chivalrous, to take care of women. You hold the door open for women. You do whatever you need to do to make their lives better. And so for me, with my boys, I knew I was going to train them to take care of themselves. With my daughter, though, the moment I looked into her eyes, I said, the little girls are really expensive. I should get back to work. I really do.
That was back to work.
It was, and I didn't know what it was when she was born. I just knew I wasn't done yet. I think what it was I never wanted my daughter to be impressed by anything your son has.
Oh, wow.
I want my daughter to take care of herself. I want her to be able to do that.
Anytime you talk about on my show, anytime a male and female issues come up, it's always controversial. Somebody doesn't like something somebody says about men or women, but I think both as fathers, we know we love our sons.
Yes.
And every father listening to this will attest to this. This isn't a sexist thing at all. It's just different with your daughter.
Yep.
It's just different. There's this part of you, I think, that wants to, provide or protect for your daughter in a way that is just, it's unique and special. It's innate, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, and I want to address that too, because I'll tell people that story in my seminars, and I'll say, I don't care if you think I'm sexist. I really don't. I'm not.
Right.
I mean, that's your stuff. That's not mine.
Right.
Except, if it's sexist for a man to want to take care of the women in his life, maybe guilty.
Right, guilty, right? Because I assume that there's a whole bunch of women who love to take care of the men in their life.
Absolutely,
right?
and vice versa.
Yeah,
and that's the deal that Erica and I have.
Right.
Erica takes care of me. I take care of everything else.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's not to say that a woman couldn't take care of herself or a man couldn't take care of themselves. That's the partnership.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, I agree. 100% with you. Totally agree with you. So there's so much here. And so what I want you to know, just to step back for a second, as Marshall teaches all different levels of influence, of certainty, and all the way up to a master's level, doctorate type level. In today's program, we're going to stay at sort of the elementary school level, but I want people to have a flavor of some of these things too, because I feel like I practice some of the things that you teach. And there's little things you did earlier. For those of you that are listening to this audio